Are we worst people the richer and more powerful we become?
I would say yes. And I'm sorry to say that, as you rise in wealth and privilege, you share less, you feel less compassion to images of suffering. You see an image. This was a striking study to me of, it's a movie about a child who has cancer, and poorer people show activation of the vagus nerve, which is part of compassion. Causes you to want to help. Well-to-do people, less activation. They feel less awe as you rise in the social class hierarchy in the United States. You think about, rising in wealth and privilege and class as you create a life that makes it harder to be kind. That people are assisting you with things, and you don't come into contact with suffering. You live in a neighborhood in the United States or probably UK where it's you don't see it. And so it doesn't train those tendencies.
Because there's kind of a long prevailing stereotype that rich people are bad, they're less compassionate, less empathetic, and I always wondered whether that was just, I don't know, was it true? Was it people being jealous? Was it just too much of a broad generalization? Was it based on the acts of maybe a few?
Yeah.
But you're telling me that the science supports the fact that generally, the richer you are, and the higher you are in terms of social class, the less compassionate, less empathetic you are as a human.
Yeah, and it is. That's the broad argument. I've given you a couple of findings here. There are all kinds of other findings that speak to this.
Jesus.
One. This is one of my favorites. Is in these epidemiologists who are studying broad trends in social behavior discovered this accidentally. They're interested in who shoplifts as a teenager in the United States. A basic unethical tendency, really costly for businesses in the United States. Is it the rich or the poor?
Well, who I would assume it would be, but I feel like I'm wrong.
It's the rich. Rich high school kids in the United States are more likely to shoplift, right? And that's striking. They've got their parents' credit card. They can buy whatever they want, and they violate that social rule. This is where it gets really worrying. It's a pretty safe law in human behavior. I hate to say it. It's because you're rising in prominence and facing a new life, and you better watch out.
I was thinking most of the time you're talking, which is how do you avoid that? How do you avoid? How do you avoid that scientifically supported tendency to become an asshole with the more wealth and power you accrue? I
think that there's an awareness dimension to this that you've suggested. There's an ethical practice of how do I create more gratitude in an organization if that's what we care about, et cetera. Rich people do live longer. That's robust.
Healthcare.
Yeah. And food you eat and so forth.
Sure.
Opportunity for health, yoga, all the things that benefit us. Rich people, this is interesting, surprised me, rich people are less likely to experience anxiety and depression in the United States. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? We think so lonely and anxiety producing to be at the top. No, mental health issues are really concentrated in the poor for obvious reasons. Working 2 jobs, riding the bus, schools are under-resourced, et cetera. But to your point, and it's interesting, the effect of wealth on happiness is much smaller than people think. People think, in particular in a country like the United Kingdom or, Great Britain or US, once I make a lot of money, it'll be bliss and happiness and contentment. That turns out not to be true. It's a weak relationship. And I think part of the reason is, when you gain in resources, you don't have these raw feelings of compassion as often, or God, I'm grateful for that gift, right, that you gave me, or this is awesome, this person's courage, or how they overcame obstacles. And so that diminishes how wealth could make you happier. So I think it's at play in some of these phenomena and maybe in others.